Hello and welcome to Team Members, 3 Tools to Improve Your Work from Home Experience. This has been a very relevant topic this year in particular, and a lot of organizations have been migrating towards using some of the tools that we're going to talk about today. And one of the things that this specific session is focused on is on the individual team member, the individual person that's trying to improve their experience of navigating the work from home world right now. There's a lot of things that this session ties to if your organization and your supervisor, manager, department, cross-functional team, etc., is choosing to use some of the tools today like Teams and SharePoint and OneDrive. But some of the setting, again, the content today and the settings we're going to go through today are really to help you as an individual user, person using all these tools to optimize your experience. And again, there's no right or wrong answer to some of the things we're going to show you. It's just things that you can look at to determine what might be the best fit for you as you're navigating, again, working from home and these tools. All right, with that said, so this is a how-to session, right? So it is being recorded and we are going to go quickly through it. I'm not going to go through every single option, but I'm hoping to show you and navigate you to a point where you can go explore this yourself. So if I go too fast, again, I'm trying to get through this content in 30 minutes. Go back and look at the recording and check it out and kind of explore yourself. That's kind of the point, what we're trying to accomplish here. By the way, I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Nathan Austin. I'll be presenting, and Stephanie Kingsley is behind the scenes producing. So sorry about that, but thank you. So then we're going to go through common challenges faced when working from home, because again, ultimately, we're not just trying to show you different features and things that are possible, but trying to think about, well, what are some of the problems you have when you work from home and how might these tools help you solve those problems? So then we'll go through the demonstration of the 3 different tools, open it up for some Q&A. And one of the things that I always like to mention about the Q&A is that the Q&A panel is open right now. So if there's anything that as we go through that you want to ask a question on, go ahead and put it in the Q&A. Stephanie will either answer it offline for you, or when we open it up after 30 minutes, we'll go through that with you. And so I don't want you to forget that question that you might have wanted to ask because of earlier in the session. Okay. So no worries, that's what we're going to cover today. If you've seen these sessions before, I always like to say at least 1 minute about MyTech. Ultimately, we are not really a training organization. We do like to help people with Microsoft 365, but we are a business and technology consulting organization that works with small and medium businesses in the Twin Cities, Minnesota, and Denver, Colorado. And one of the things that we've learned over the last 20 years of being in business is that we've learned a way, proven IT strategy that we know can achieve consistent results for you, our client. It doesn't mean that's the only way that works and it can achieve those results. It's just the way that we've found that we know we can achieve those results when we work and collaborate with our clients. So ultimately, our goal is to try and remove some of those IT challenges that organizations can face, so that you can be focused on serving your customers and ultimately be more adaptable to the other business challenges that we all face, such as a pandemic and working from home and all the other challenges that we have in business. So together, that our brand promises that our clients will achieve 4 times more value and productivity from their IT investments. So if you're interested in that, by all means, if you'd like to have a conversation about that, raise your hand. We'd love to have a chat with you. But that's not why you're here today. So let's move on. I always like to at least touch on a little bit about MyTech so you know who we are. Okay, so let's open it up to some of the common challenges that we face when we work from home. All right, so these are just some of them. To spark some dialogue and thought. But I know those of you who, if you're in the room with me right now, if I was like looking out at the audience, like sometimes we would do, we used to do with these sessions, I would ask everyone to raise their hand if you have to use a VPN connection to access the information at your office that you need to access. That very well is the case if you're still using file servers, and candidly, we still have file servers as well. So I have data, some of the data that I need to access is on a VPN, but we've been moving and migrating all of our information. So the majority of the information that I use on a regular basis and the team members that I work with use is basically built into Teams and SharePoint. So finding information and making that easy for your team is one of the challenges that exists with when you work from home. The other thing is too many clicks. That's one of the things that I feel like trying to navigate and follow some intuitive structure and trying to find finding the information, but taking too many clicks to get there. So if we can make it easy to find those clicks and show you how to navigate some of those items. One of the other ones that I feel like it can get really distracting when you're working from home is too much noise. How do you make sure that you're getting the right alerts or notifications that you want, and maybe tuning down or turning off the alerts or notifications that you don't want? There's some capabilities to do that, and I'll show you a couple tips and tricks. They may or not even apply to you as far as your world and how you're using these tools, but I'm really hoping to at least share some ideas so that it'll get you thinking about what you might be able to do if this is a challenge that you face. Slow bandwidth, or I've had, when I've worked from home, I've had moments where it just seems like, gosh, today my internet just seems really poor, versus days that it's not a problem whatsoever when I'm on video calls or working remotely. So there's a couple things that you can do, especially if you're on video calls and on sessions where you're trying to share information or have a conversation. There are things you can do to help optimize that. If your internet connection is struggling. And again, hard to access files and information. I'll show you a little bit about that too. So, all right, with that said, let's go into the demonstration. So I'm going to go to allow PowerPoint to show my taskbar so I can navigate to Teams. So first of all, I'm going to go to Teams and I'm going to go to the chat section. So for those of you who have who use chats in Teams, so I just click the chat tab, and one of the things you noticed up here, I've got a pinned section. So hypothetically speaking, I work with Stephanie and Gerald, and this is our demo environment. So all the time, so I have them pinned. And if this was my MyTech tenant, the number of chats would scroll, and I have to scroll down to possibly find the different chats and the different folks. So in order to help me find the right people or the people that I communicate with on a more frequent basis, you can pin chats. I'll show you how to do that. So I'm just going to pick this one down here for an example. So once I notice you hover over a chat, the little breadcrumbs appear, for instance, right here, for example. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that, and it'll give me the option to pin. So, and that's really that simple, just pin. And now it'll keep this, it'll always keep this up at the top. And if for some reason, let's say this is say I'm still working with Stephanie and Gerald on a regular basis. However, this is just a short-term project that I might be working on with different members of our team. And so I might want to pin that for the duration of that short-term project, but then potentially if I want to get rid of it, then I can unpin it. So then it'll basically just eventually go down my list. So pinning is one of the easy ways. When I say finding information, as opposed to having to always search or scroll through your chats, it's a way in which you can just, if you just pin that information, it gives you fewer clicks to be able to find it and get the information you want. So I'm going to come back to the chat, but I want to go over to the Teams section. So I'm going to click on Teams. And the other thing you can do from a pinning perspective is you can actually pin channels. So notice I've got a couple channels up here pinned. One of the things that I always like to communicate is you can't pin a team. So I can't pin at this level, but I can pin at this level. So notice the all MTP 365 general channel is pinned. It's also here, but the way I did that, same way, hover over it just like I did on a chat, and I click on the little breadcrumbs there, and I can unpin or pin right here. And then it just pops it up to the top. So you can pin, so if you have different channels that you're using, again, if you see this is the demo environment, sorry, I need to click out of that. So these are the different teams that we've set up in our demo environment. And if I worked with one of these teams, so like for instance, the operations team general channel, I'm gonna spend a lot of time on this channel today in the demonstration. I'm just going to go ahead and say, all right, I'm going to work with this one, so I'm going to pin this channel. So it doesn't move the channel. That's one of the differences between chat and the team section of Teams, is that when you pin a channel, it doesn't move the channel, it just pins it to the top. So it's more like a shortcut, makes it easy for you to access. Whereas in the chat section, when you pin, if you notice, it actually moves the chat to the top, and it doesn't show down here. So that's one of the differences between Teams, the team section or a channel versus pinning a chat. So one of the other things now I want to hit on with regard to Teams is hide and show Teams. So I'm going to scroll down here. Notice there's a hidden channel. If I hover over that, it gives me the chance to see the extra one there. If I want that to show, I can hit show. So that's one of the things I can do. So now that went from hidden to shown. The reverse is also true. If I want to actually hide a channel, I can actually just click on the breadcrumbs and I can click hide. And so that is one of the things that I can do if I'm trying to manage my list of teams. That's one of the ways in which I can choose the teams that I see or that are most visible to me, is by either hiding them, because that might allow, if I hide some of the ones that I don't use very often, I can then maybe scroll less to get to my information. Or sometimes even down here, you see I've got hidden teams. I can come down here to the hidden teams section, and let's say I want to make this one visible. Again, I'll click on the breadcrumbs and I'll hit show, and now it'll pop up in the regular teams, not the hidden teams. So that's just a couple tips. If you haven't seen that, there's just a couple tips to be able to manage what you see and hopefully make fewer clicks to get to the information that you use most regularly. So again, as a team member, identify the ones that make sense for you, and if that might be a thing to do, either pin them, hide, or show them. Okay, so then I want to show the activity tab. I tried to have, so Stephanie made a couple comments, but I'm going to go show the activity tab. Notice how there's an indicator. Now, actually, if it was showing the taskbar down here, which it's not, so here I'm gonna show you the taskbar, because the other thing that you'll see in your notifications is Teams. It has a number 2 down here, so you'll see that in your notifications, right? So when I click on Teams, well, here's why. It's because I've got a couple notifications up here. So I really like to use the activity tab. It really helps me, and you don't have to really even choose to use it or not. From a standpoint of turning it on or off, I guess is my point. Because when you use if you just click on the activity tab, one of the things it does, it shows you your feed. It shows you, here's the stuff that's happened, right? So this one, for example, is Stephanie reacted to a message because I said, thanks for your help. So it just brought me to that point, and it showed what happened. And then, oh, Stephanie mentioned me, so I can click on here. So here, Stephanie mentioned me down here on a post, so I could see that this is a correspondence that I had with her, and she commented on that post. So it shows up my activity. So instead of me having to try and scroll through all the different teams or chats as far as, did something happen, did I get a notification, did I get an update, it gives you easy indicators as far as what happened, so I can quickly navigate. And it's kind of like marking an email as unread, but much simpler, but it takes you right to the point of the different chats or communications. So notice once I clicked on this notification, I didn't realize I was going to do that, but I also had an indicator here in the chat section. And the reason why this notification also went away is because my activity was here. So you don't have to go to both places to really turn off or eliminate the notification. But that is a way, whenever I'm away from my teams, or if I'm working on a different meeting or I'm coming back or whatever, then I go right to my activity, especially if there's an indicator there. I go to my activity feed, and that allows me to then very quickly, at a glance, see what I missed and if there's anything I need to respond to or do. So that's one of the things I really love about Teams, personally, to be able to manage my own time. Okay, so then another thing I want to show you relative to Teams before we move on to SharePoint is I'm going to come into Teams, and actually I want to use the same example here. So let's say that this chat, this post here, was something that now, because I've read it, my activity notification is turned off. So because it knows that I've read it, I don't necessarily do anything with it. But what if I wanted to I wanted to come back to this at a later date? How do I remind myself that I need to do that? Well, one of the ways you can do that is because you can actually save. If I actually just click, again, you have to hover over it. If you notice that, you have to hover over the respective section of the post. So I'm hovering over that, the little breadcrumbs become available. I can click on that, and then I have the opportunity to save this message. I can also mark it as unread if that's something you like to do, but I would prefer and recommend that you use the save function. So you can click save message. So now that message is saved, but notice how it gave me the little visual indicator. I'm going to show you there. Look up here when I'm going to save another message, and look up in this area of the screen once I do it. So I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to save this message as well. notice it popped up here as saved. Because then I was going to show you the way to access saved, because one of the challenges is that you don't have a saved section in this team area here, because you might have saved messages across multiple different teams and multiple different channels. You have one place, a consolidated view, to be able to view saved messages if it's something you need to do in the future. So you come up here and click on your profile, and then you can actually view saved messages right here. So you click on that, and that should then basically show me the saved messages that I have over here in my activity feed, for example. So that's a quick way for you to, because sometimes you read something because you know, and then you're like, oh gosh, I know I need to do something with that. I don't have time to do it right now, but I don't want to forget about doing it. So what do you do? So that's one of the things I recommend doing is just really quick, clicking the little breadcrumbs down here, hover over it, click on that, hit the breadcrumbs, and you can save or unsave this message. And then when you click on your profile, you can quickly navigate to your saved messages. All right, so that's most of the tips on Teams relative to just fewer clicks and navigating information. I want to hit on the bandwidth topic. So, all right, I'm going to open this window up. So this is the window. So let's see if Stephanie had her video on, she would see this, but I'm sharing my screen. So this is the video, but let's say I was having poor network quality. One of the things you can do, I want to hit on this really quick. If you go down to the breadcrumbs, is you can turn off incoming video. Now I'm sharing my video also, but let's say if I had a meeting where I had a bunch of people, and so I'm basically streaming one or more people's video content, right? So one of the things you can do if you want to still present your video, but you want to optimize the bandwidth, maybe you're getting choppiness, or people are saying they can't hear you, or you're seeing screens freeze, turning off incoming video is one way to do that. Again, click on the breadcrumbs here. Then you just hit turn off incoming video. And so if Stephanie was sharing her video, that would basically turn the screen to exactly like this. So I wouldn't see anybody's incoming video, and that would help. It would not be taking up the bandwidth then to be streaming that video. So the other thing you can do, of course, is be conscious of, you could be turning off your video, right? So because broadcasting your video does take more bandwidth than not. So those are just a couple quick and easy settings that you can do from a bandwidth management perspective, is just turning off your incoming video or turning off your video. A couple simple little things, but you know, we've probably all been in a meeting where you get a choppy signal, you feel like your bandwidth isn't the way you'd like it. And these are the two things I would try really quick and easy to see if that helps, because it very often does. So, okay. I'm not going to go show you anything mobile here in mobile, but that's one of the things I always like to illustrate, is that a lot of these settings and features are also in mobiles, on your mobile devices, excuse me. So, and shoot, I forgot one more thing. Is notifications. So when you click on your profile up here, your profile picture, if you have one, you go to settings, and then in settings, there's one of the tabs is notifications. So because some people want more notifications, some people want less, but here's, and I'm not going to go through all of these, but if you want to get different types of notifications, this is where you can configure all of that. So that if you want to get, because some people want a little I wish I could, the little notifier like, hey, you got a message in Teams that pops up on your window and your desktop and then down. Do you want to get, some of them, the default setting is that if you haven't checked chat in, I think it's like an hour, you'll get an email that you got a chat. So you might want to turn that on, you might want to turn that off. So just this is where you do that. So from, again, the noise factor, when we talked about the problems that sometimes we deal with, is that we're all getting inundated with notifications and alerts. And so for Teams, this is a place where you can configure your own custom notifications to minimize and to manage those variables. Again, I'll show you that one more time. So in the hit your profile up here, go down to the settings. Once you click on settings, it's the notifications tab, and then you can start looking through these different variables down here for your own personal settings. All right, now I want to go into SharePoint. So that's all for Teams, but Teams and SharePoint work very, very closely together. And in fact, one of the things that I will illustrate as I get here is I wanted to go into the operations team to show you some things here. So let's say if I'm part of the operations team, one of the things that's I love about Teams is that it has the ability for files. Now, if you can consider this like similar to how you had your file share in the past, it's similar, but There are some differences, so I do want to be clear about that. But so, for instance, this is a place where if I'm in Teams and I want to look at the files that are relative to the operations team, I just go to the Files tab and I can grab that. Also, with one click, I can say I want to open this up information in SharePoint. So one click opens up the same information as you see here in SharePoint. So that's actually one of the things I really like about the ability of using Teams and SharePoint together, is if you know there's some shortcuts there that make it really easy for you to navigate and access different information. I can also go to Teams by, I could get to the same spot, so I'll illustrate the point. I could go here, Microsoft Office Home, I could click on SharePoint, and then I could click on the operations team, and then I could click on documents. So you see, I just took 5 or 6 clicks where once I actually got, once I was in, when I was already in Teams, it was one click to get to the same spot. So that's one of the reasons you can go to the, through the SharePoint path too that way, but this through Teams, it's one click to get you to that spot. Okay, so I will show you really quick in SharePoint. One of the things that I'm in a demo tenant, so it's not going to allow me to do this. But you'll see what I mean here in a second, because of the way this is my corporate laptop, so it's not part of the demo environment, et cetera. But you know, one of the things that I like to be able to do, similar to pinning. Oh my gosh, I'm at a hotel and the fire alarm is going off. I don't know what to do about this. Wow. Let me see if that's going to just stop. I did not expect that to happen, everybody. So I apologize about that. We might just have to re-record this session. But I'll continue on just for a few minutes in case that does go off, as sometimes fire alarms do. Or I might need to vacate here. Stephanie, I don't know what to do here. I think I should probably just maybe sign off here in just a moment. You have any thoughts?
Yeah,
Sorry,
yeah, we could postpone and redo the session, you know, in the coming weeks if we need to.
Yeah, I did not expect this to happen. So it's not turning off. It hasn't been going on that long, but it's not turning off. Oh, there it did. It just turned off. Okay, I kind of figured most of those are false alarms. So well, you know, I love that this is live, right? So, and for those of you who are watching the recording at a later date, fun, right? This is what we all get to see. So don't worry, everything's safe. The alarm's off. So let's pick up where we left off. So, all right, thank you very much, everyone, for bearing with us. And this is just another great example of the things that you have to navigate through when you're working from home. So I love it. And I'm glad that it wasn't a real fire or a real problem. So, okay, so I was at the point of wanting to show you, like, when you go to SharePoint, one of the things that historically, if you haven't used SharePoint recently, one of the challenges that SharePoint posed is that you just had one site. And so, now the concept of teams, every single team that you have, that you create, you know, and I'm gonna flip back. Every single team, like all MTP 365, marketing, operations, channel advisory board, all of those have a corresponding SharePoint site. Notice marketing team site, board of directors site, all MTP 365 site, operations team site. So these are all individual SharePoint sites that those teams can manage. The problem is when you have are a member of all those different teams, or you have lots of different teams you're a member of, which nearly everyone will be, trying to figure out, and if you have a bunch, like here, it all fits on one screen, but because some of the different teams that we have, I know that I definitely have to scroll. So one of the ways that you can pin a SharePoint site, similar to what we talked about regarding pinning the chats or the channels, is that you click this little follow button up here. Now I'm going to click it and I'm going to illustrate my point. I'm in the demo environment. It works in the MyTech environment, but because I'm in this demo environment, it's not going to work. But so you just click here and notice it basically fills in the circle. It says we couldn't add this to your sites. I knew that wouldn't do that. But you could also do it over here. So you just click this little star and it basically pins the sites that you follow up here at the top. So it's just a little thing if you're trying to navigate or faster clicks to get to SharePoint sites that you work with more frequently. That's a simple thing that you can do. One of the other things that I really like, and I want to show you, click into the operations team SharePoint site. here. So, and again, we haven't done any customization to really this part of the site. This is kind of the generic by default. But one of the things you can do if you have the Microsoft Edge Chromium browser that I also like, again, this is in the context of maybe making fewer clicks to get to this information, is that note if, and this is what the Chromium browser looks like, this icon down here at the bottom of the screen, if you can see that. So the Edge Chromium browser, one of the things you can do if you come over here to the breadcrumbs, so I've chosen the operations team home site. So I'm going to come over here to the little breadcrumbs. Again, if you can see that over here in the corner, click on the breadcrumbs, and I'm going to come down here to apps. This is one of the things that that the Chrome browser can do, and it says install this site as an app. So what this actually does is it basically makes it kind of like a web application that you can use as a shortcut. So I'm going to hit install, and I'm going to say operations team home. I'm just going to keep that there. So now it popped out this SharePoint site as an app. And notice how I was just in the web browser, but now it shows it here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to pin this to the taskbar. So now, of course, my taskbar just went away thanks to PowerPoint. Forgive me, I need to do that again. Show taskbar. Okay, so now what I did is I basically created a one-click to navigate to my operations team SharePoint site, and it's an app as opposed to the entire SharePoint site. So it's kind of a cool little way so that if you're, and I can go ahead and close that, but notice the app's still there, so that if this is a SharePoint site that I use on a regular basis, by installing it as an app and putting as a kind of pinning it to my taskbar, I can also have one click to get to my operations team SharePoint site. There we go, one click. So again, it's not that you have to do that. It's just one of the things that I try and do. Again, if you're an individual trying to optimize your experience, if this is something you use on a regular basis, fewer clicks to navigate every day and all the information you use can definitely be very beneficial. So I'm gonna go ahead and close that. I'm gonna go back to the browser. All right. I also want to show you filters. So one of the things that you can click on this little thing that looks like a filter over here. So I just closed it, I'm going to click on this, open the filters pane. So now what I can do is I can choose, I want to look at any file that's a Word document or a PowerPoint or a PDF. I can look at, I also created a column that is tagging the different topics in here. So let's say I want to look at any of these documents that pertain to Planner. So now I have narrowed my view to just the documents that that have Planner, that are tagged with Planner. So that's just an example of how you can create custom filters if you've never looked at that. So I'm going to close the filters pane, and I'm going to show you one other thing you can do is that when you click down here, one of the other things I like is I can say I want to create a new view or save this view. So I'm going to save this view as, for example, I'm going to save this view as Planner view. Planner view. So when I do that, I can make it public or not. Now this view, as you notice, is saved as Planner view. And when if I want to, so I can save the different types of views. So I have another one that I labeled Teams, or if I'm just going to go back to all documents, I can click into all documents. So that's a quick way. So if that's a filter that I use on a regular basis, which you may or may not use, but inside of your content here, if that's a filter used on a regular basis, you could just come in here and click Teams View, and now that, or Planner View, whichever one makes sense. So that's one of the things I like to be able to show in SharePoint, is because you can customize those filters, and those filters can only, they don't have to apply to everybody, they can just apply to you. So if that's something that makes sense for you because of what you do and your role and the type of documents you work with on a regular basis, guess what? Create a view, it'll really help you out. And you can navigate quickly and easily in and out of it, or turn off the filter here in either one of these spots. All right, so that was one of the things I want to show you. So turning on a filter, and then you can save the view, and then you can navigate between views. So those are kind of, all those three work really well together. Finally, I want to, on SharePoint, I want to go to, or actually there's two more things on SharePoint. I want to go to the operations team issues. So notice there's a little tab here on the side. I created a list. We use this in our team meetings. We use lists in our team meetings to be able to post items to kind of a parking board. So one of the things you can do if you have a list that you work with, there's this edit in grid view. So because I'm going to turn off the filters over here too, because you could click into each one of these individual items, or I could hit edit in grid view, and then it actually allows me then to click into any one of these and edit the whole grid, as opposed to having to open up and close each and every one of these individually. And then if I want it, once I'm done editing, I can click exit grid view, and then it pops back to that. That's a really simple thing, but it's one of those things, if you weren't familiar with that and you were used to trying to click in each one of these, which opens up this individual one, and then saying I want to edit it, and then editing it and then hit save. You could do that in each individual one, or you could actually just hit edit in grid view, and then you can open up the editing capability for every single item in your list. Again, fewer clicks to do the same function. Finally, if this is something that pertains to you, when you go to the breadcrumbs on nearly any given tab, if you're on an operations team, you can build alerts. So you could choose to say alert me. So it gives you the options, and I'm not going to walk through all of these, to say, well, what do you want? How do you want to be alerted? Well, anytime there's a change, I want to be alerted. Well, how do you want to be changed? By email or alerted by email or text message? And then do you want to send a notification immediately, daily summary, weekly summary, those kind of things. Once you've set those alerts, the other option in the breadcrumbs is manage my alerts. So you can actually click manage my alerts, and now basically you can see if there's, I don't have any alerts really established here, but this is where, if you had alerts set up, this is where you could actually then manage them. So those are just a couple tips. As far as the reason why I noticed that is because the noise factor. There might be things that you want to get notified for, or you might want to turn off or turn up or turn down different types of alerts. So if you're getting alerts inside of SharePoint, which by default are turned on if you're part of them, if there's changes, that's one of the things that you can do to manage those alerts. Is, again, going back to pretty much any given site. I can go also here, the breadcrumbs. It has alerts. So you go to the breadcrumbs on nearly any given spot in SharePoint at this top bar, and you'll be able to manage those. I know I'm a little over time, so forgive me, especially got derailed with the with the fire alarm. But I have a couple more things real quick in OneDrive to show you, and then we will wrap it up. So, and that's a little teaser summary bar here. So in OneDrive, one of the things that I want to show you. So this is. There's, first of all, OneDrive allows an individual user, especially if you have low bandwidth like we were talking about before, or if you're struggling with bandwidth, syncing your information to OneDrive is really, really helpful. That's one of the best ways that I like to work now that we've moved a lot of our documents into the Teams and SharePoint environment, because you can then sync it to OneDrive. So I want to start by illustrating a couple things that you see. Notice there's OneDrive listed here, the cloud OneDrive, MyTech. Then there's the building. There's the building MyTech. So this is the corporate, for instance, is the corporate MyTech SharePoint site. So that anything here I'm syncing from our corporate site. And then anything here is stuff that is part of my, it's kind of like my documents folder. If you're familiar with that, is your OneDrive-MyTech. It's my corporate, my documents, but it's not synced from our corporate SharePoint site. You look at the building icon and it tells you that. So for our demo environment, the demo environment is called Contoso because Microsoft, that's what they call it. So I'm going to show you, I'm going to sync the operations team's documents. I've synced the all company documents, the guest team and marketing team, but I haven't yet synced the marketing team. So I'm going to hit, go down, I'm going to hit escape. Come back to the PowerPoint. So I'm going to come up here. So let's say here I'm in the operations team's documents. I want to sync this. So I just have to click this button right up here. If I want to have these documents available to me when I'm offline or just available to me in my file structure, I just come up here and I'll hit sync. And notice those documents were not there. The operations team is not there right now. So I'm going to go back just to illustrate that. And I'm going to say, yep, go ahead and do that. It should be syncing. And now I believe I'll go back to my folder and the operations team folder is now there. So that is all you had to do is sync once. Now I don't have to necessarily go and open up the documents in SharePoint. I can actually open these exact same documents in OneDrive. Now, one of the things that it's important for you to understand is that the status column, by default, when you sync from SharePoint, it basically, these are all links. Notice the status column has a cloud. I'm going to open up this one just to give you an illustration. So I've opened that. I'm going to go ahead and close it now because I don't need to I don't need to keep that open, but notice the icon changed because it changed to a little checkbox. So that means because I've opened it, it had to download it to my machine, and so now I know this document has been cached to my machine. But let's say I'm about ready to go to an area where I don't have good bandwidth, or I'm struggling at home. Maybe my bandwidth isn't good, so I want to sync this behind the scenes. Well, one of the things I can do is I can right-click. I didn't mean to click the edit. I can right-click on it, and I can say always keep on this device. So you'll see what that does is I do that, and hopefully there you go. So it just filled in. Now it's a filled in green checkbox. So if I unplug my internet connection, which I'm connected to wireless, so that doesn't really work, but if I turn off my wireless and I don't have any internet, I would still be able to open up this file and edit this file. These other documents, because it shows a cloud, means that these are basically shortcuts to the documents that exist in the cloud. So you need to be able to download them if you're going to be able to use them. So just understand the sync column. Now, if I wanted to free up some space, because for instance, if let's say my hard drive's filling up because my local hard drive is not as big as what the cloud has, and I want to manage that, I can just hit free up space. So I right click on it, scroll down to this free up space spot, click create space, and voila, the cloud icon appears. So this is basically the simple things to be able to use OneDrive. I would highly recommend if your organization is using SharePoint and Teams, and you as an individual user sync the folder structure, sync the SharePoint sites that have the documents that you use, and you'll have access to them. And then you don't have to. Then you could keep the ones on your device if that makes sense for faster and easier access. And one of the things to note, they are always in sync. Right, so it's always going to sync back. So if you go offline and you're editing these documents because you've downloaded them to your machine, when you save them and you get your internet connection back again, it'll sync them back. So that's really the tips about OneDrive. If you weren't familiar with that, I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint and this summary slide here. So these are the tips that I wanted to share with everybody. As far as Teams, all those different items that I went through with you today is really trying to optimize. I'm not saying you should do all of these things as an individual. It's really trying to say, as an individual, trying to optimize your own personal experience. These are a lot of the different ways that you could use to optimize, to make fewer clicks, to have the information that you use on a regular basis at your fingertips, as well as managing the working from home where we might have to deal with low bandwidth, and understand how we might be able to use OneDrive and some of the features in Teams to be able to navigate sometimes that reality. So again, this is recorded. This is a summary here. The last thing I would say that I'd highly recommend, look, identify some of the problems you're trying to solve. I always recommend this. I was coached on this from a productivity consultant. Try and write down a couple things now and take some baby steps, maybe for the holidays, because we'll have some short-term memory loss. And then one of the things I would love to do is subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on LinkedIn, and let us know if there's anything we can do to help you with Microsoft 365. We'd love to be able to dig in deeper with you on an individual or organizational basis, and so let us know if that's something that you might be interested in. And finally, please join us for future virtual training sessions. We are going to be doing them every other week or twice a month moving forward, so stay tuned for those as well. And thank you for attending and for dealing with our little bit going over time. So I apologize about that. I got definitely derailed by the fire alarm. But thanks for watching, whether you watched it live today or whether you are watching the recording at a future date. So thank you very much. For those of you who can stick around, we'll open up for Q&A. But for those of you who are going to drop off, thanks for joining us, and we'll talk to you again and have an excellent, wonderful holiday season. Stephanie, let's open it up for questions.
Thanks, Nate. There's no current questions in here. There was one that came through that I somewhat answered offline, but if you wanted to address it,
sure.
They were asking, so you're saying SharePoint and Teams are synced. So can you open SharePoint files through Teams?
Yeah, great question. I will go, let me go into Teams. So it's actually, that question is one of the most challenging concepts to really wrap your head around when you're using Teams and SharePoint. So you probably didn't realize that when you asked that question, but really what you're seeing here is not, so for instance, again, this is the operations team. I was using this kind of throughout the session today. I just clicked on the general team channel and files. So these are the same files that exist in SharePoint, because SharePoint is effectively the storage database repository for everything relative to Microsoft 365. So what you're seeing here, and I'll give you an example. Notice how I've got all MTP 365 documents. There, you can't really see it. I'm sure it doesn't come across on the video, but in this folder, there's a really small little link icon. But if I hover over it here, it says linked from SharePoint. Basically, everything that you see, files, documents, in Teams, folders in Teams, is it's a shortcut to SharePoint. So if I clicked on one of these, which I can do, I think it'll just open up right in SharePoint. So I'm going to do this. Yeah, because it's going to open up right in the SharePoint window, as noted there. Right. So this is, I clicked on the document. It's opening up inside of the Teams window, excuse me, but effectively this document lives in SharePoint. So I'm gonna go ahead and close that, and it brings me right back to my Teams environment. But that's why this one click to open up in SharePoint, you'll see these same documents, and these folders are actually linked folders. So that's why you don't see them when I say open up in SharePoint. But you can also, so the reason why I bring that concept is because it's, say if I'm an operations team person, so the majority of the time I live in the operations team, and this is where I am commonly navigating. But yet I also then on occasion, or I frequently access the all MTP 365 documents that are stored here. Well, if you can make it fewer clicks by adding this link here. So again, it's just linked. So you can provide links to document repositories and information in lots of different places, but depending on what makes it easier for your team members to be able to use them. So you don't have to provide links in different places, but the beauty of this is that you're not copying information. So the information doesn't live here and SharePoint. It's just, it lives in both, it lives in SharePoint, and you just have access to it from multiple different places. And the other thing that's nice, so for instance, is that when you link these documents, is that as an individual, if I don't have the permission, so let's say I'm not a member of the all MTP 365 team. Now, I would be, because it's maybe a little bit of a misnomer, but let's say I'm not a member of the Change Advisory Board team. So if I'm not a member of the Change Advisory Board team and this document is linked here, if I click on it, it wouldn't let me access it. It wouldn't open the information for me. So it knows as a user what access I have and what access I don't have. And even though I might see a link or access or a folder, it doesn't mean that I'm going to be able to open it. So anyway, this is a really important concept for you to, the question that you asked is really, really great one, because that is the fundamental way in which you can actually help your team create fewer steps to access the information they need, is because the information basically all lives in SharePoint, but when you see it in OneDrive, it's just kind of a shortcut to it. When it's in OneDrive, or when it's in Teams, it's just a shortcut. When it's in OneDrive, it's just a shortcut. So it's basically, it's the same information in all places, but ultimately the repository is SharePoint, and then it's just multiple ways to access the information in SharePoint. So it's a tough concept to articulate. So forgive me, I don't feel like I did a great job of it, but I hope that made sense, because it's a really powerful aspect of how these tools work together.
Thanks, Nate. Another question came through asking, in saving a view, do new documents get added to the saved view?
So yeah, good question. So the view is basically, if you've heard of when people talk about metadata, if that makes sense, or tags or criteria, things like that. One of the views that you're customizing are basically using the attributes that apply to any of the documents or the information that's there. So when you said if you use a view, if you add a document if you're in this view and you add a document, if the criteria or the metadata of that document does not adhere to the filter, then no, you wouldn't see it. And it would not, I don't believe it would not apply the attributes by default if you added it to, if you had this view or this filter on, it wouldn't necessarily apply those attributes by default. I think that might be what you're asking. No, so basically, again, this is just a filter or a saved search criteria to some extent, where I've chosen, I want to look at any document that has Teams, that has a tag of Teams. This custom column, so if I added a document right now, and if I did not add that Teams attribute to it, it would not show up in this view. I think that was the
But
question.
if you did add a document and tagged it Teams, it would show up in that view.
Correct. 100%. Yes. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah. That's all the questions we have.
All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining. And you know, I tell you, this is a first for me of presenting a session and having a fire drill go off. So so thanks for bearing with us, and I'm glad everyone's safe. But again, signing off. I hope everyone has a wonderful and happy holiday season. Again, my name is Nathan Austin, and thank you, Stephanie, for producing behind the scenes. So have a great day, everyone.